what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming. It's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
And lecker Freitag to all of you. Welcome, folks. Herzlich willkommen bei uns. Schon wieder unsere Sendung kommt heute aus Pennsylvania. Ich bin der Oberst Chris Wyatt und ich hoffe, dass alle finden sich in guter Laune. Besonders in Afrika, in Europa und hier auch in Nordamerika. Ja, es freut mich, bei dir zu wieder sein. Ja, na, wie geht's? Bonjour tous, je suis très heureux que vous êtes là avec nous pour notre transmission aujourd'hui. Le 31 janvier 2025. C'était encore une bonne journée, j'espère, pour tout le monde. Bien sûr, les gens qui habitent en France et en Afrique du Sud. Welcome back, folks. Chris here in central Pennsylvania. Wow, you have to pardon me. It has been a very long 10 days. News events. What's going on with my hair? I had it looking all nice now. It looks funny. News events for the past 10 days have just been, wow. I need a news staff. I need a couple field cub reporters. It's just so much going on. In the midst of all that, some of my videos are actually being watched now by more than the usual suspects: Kaiser Sose, Shawnee, Hendo, Pablo, Charlie, Ken Arnston, and Dylan Combrick, and Val Cooper. Beyond the usual suspects, Erica, there are people watching the videos. My video on Trump and the analysis of what could be happening with pissing Trump off is hit over 115,000 views on YouTube. I have never had a video on this channel that's hit that many. So I want to profusely thank you from the bottom of my heart, everybody. Let's check on the sound quality. I didn't hear Dylan tell me whether it's good or not. Check on the sound quality. I didn't hear Dylan tell me what. Okay. Yeah, okay. Dylan, you're falling down today. Or I missed it because I can't see. That's one thing I tell you is, so I didn't get to bed until, 4 o'clock this morning. Got up at 6. I took a nap, got up again. Thank you, Tony. And then I got up and I got so busy looking for news stories and focusing on the mid-air crash in D.C. And next thing I know, it was 10:40. You can see the clock behind me. It's 11:07. So that was less than a half hour ago. I still need to shower this morning and do things. In the midst of all that, I received a message from one Rob Hersoff. Some of you may know Rob, very well-known businessman in South Africa, who reached out to me. We had been in contact a few years back about him coming on the program. He got distracted with something else, and we couldn't schedule it. And just out of the blue, I received the message. I didn't recognize the number because I'm sure he's using a different number now. But he said, hey, he's available for an interview. So Rob Hersoff will be on the program at 7:30 South African time. You'll be directed to it right from this. So if you hang around, you go from this broadcast to the interview with Rob Hersoff. It's unscripted, unplanned, unrehearsed. Well, all of my Indaba conversations are that way. But Rob will be on the program, and so looking forward to that. I've already sent him the link, and hopefully we'll have a good conversation. Topic today will be, Shawnee, things happen, man, they happen. It's anyway. So like I said, I'm a little bit knackered right now, so I'll do my best to put on a good program for you here. I don't want to say show. This isn't a performance art, but put on a good program for you here. But we've got a lot of news to talk about, as always, including the Democratic Republic of Congo, what's going on there, Paul Kagame and Cyril Ramaphosa's war of words, which is all it'll be. It won't be a war of bullets. And we'll also talk about the D.C. situation. We're finding out now that the control tower, the air traffic control tower, was understaffed, undermanned at that critical hour. And a lot of people are trying to blame the military pilot now, but level-headed people are pointing out a combination of factors, which is almost always what happens in these situations. It's a combination of errors or mistakes or technical problems. In this case, it looks to be all mistakes. Human frailty is what seems to be the case. We don't know the answer yet. The National Transportation Safety Board will be investigating. Their first report will be in 30 days, that our knowledge, unless they come up with something ahead of time, but that's their scheduled deadline. And then further investigations. But meantime, everyone will speculate, and it's really, really difficult. The horrific loss of life, messages, people reporting the news, how they were talking to passengers on the plane during the flight, chatting with them, text messages, things like that. And then there's this sort of horrific sort of situation. The other thing is that I have told you that I will hold the Trump administration to account. This is free pass here. They don't get a free pass just because they're on my team. Trump has joined the conservative team, some time ago. So I don't give a free pass. Just like in the first administration, when the Trump administration fell short of what I expected from them, or when they were acting with hypocrisy, I called them out. I didn't play the games like, oh, he called Africa crap hole countries, because he never did that. I didn't play the game, well, he banned Muslims from coming to America, because he never did that. I didn't, those are games that the left played, but I did hold him accountable for the failure to get Congress to vote for his plans to fix the wall in the South and a host of other things. And I gave him credit for the things he succeeded. 2 missteps this week. One, the confusion over federal funding halts and foreign assistance. It's caused a real crap storm that's unnecessary. It's an own goal by the Trump administration, a rare one in this first 2 weeks of their administration, and now 2 weeks old nearly. And the other was President Trump, while he may very well be 100% correct that diversity, equity, and inclusion may have played a role in why this air mishap occurred, that was an inappropriate time to bring it up. The reason I'm saying I'm going to give them a little bit of slack on this is because every single official, except for Pete Hegseth, got up and said the exact same thing. Clearly, the administration officials know something that we don't know, or they think they know something we don't know regarding someone that may not have been hired who was qualified or fully qualified. I don't know, but we'll see. Meantime, I am going to call them out and say that it was highly inappropriate after such a uniting message at the beginning saying we're one nation. In fact, he talked some very good words. And a lot of people are criticizing Trump for actually reading from a script for once. He's never done that, but his events were short, and he wanted to make sure he was on point until he got to the DI, and then he went off script. But again, I can't see very well today. My eyes are messed up. So let's see. So he said, a dark and excruciating night for our nation. Today, we're all heartbroken. A real tragedy. Yeah, these are our hour of anguish. These are all quotes from Donald Trump at the press conference, all of which were appropriate, on the money, and what a leader does. But then he followed it up with this assault on diversity and equity and inclusion, which I have no trouble assaulting DEI. It's anything but inclusion. It's anything but diversity. It's actually exclusion of white Anglo-Saxon Protestant males primarily, but whites in general, and just anybody that's not favored by that class. And it's certainly not about equity. It's about inequity and inequality. It's about generating fake inequality just in the pursuit of one of these, one of those, one of these, one of those, one of these, one of those, which is not diversity. It's BS. Anyway, so it was unnecessary. It was caddish. It was impolite. It was rude. And I don't see the need for it unless they know something we don't know. So let's wait and see. The media have called Trump out for that, but most media have been, actually, in my view, kind of generous. They didn't make that the headline. They just add that as part of the story that he brought that up, and unfounded, some of them said. And to this point, from our perspective in the public, it is unfounded. We don't know. Perhaps there is something to it. But anyway, these are 2 own goals that were unnecessary by the Trump administration. All right, let me go ahead and say hello to everybody in the chat that I can see in the chat at this stage, and then we'll get into the news, because I've got a broadcast with Rob Hersoff coming up. Let me just check on something very quickly here, because this messages are coming in fast and furious here. Okay. All right, yep. Got it. Okay. So I asked Rob to send me his Twitter link, so I'll have to put that in, his X link. All right, so Tony Nugent from the oil sands of Alberta. There's our billionaire friend in Canada up there, taking the hydrocarbons out of the earth and processing them. Hendo is in from the United Kingdom, our moderator extraordinaire. Hendo has been with the team since the very beginning. Boy, I wish we could compensate Hendo. I mean, so far all I've been able to do is give him a hoodie, and only been able to see him that twice. Hendo, we need to hit London again, my friend. It's time to do London. I need to get to the UK. I want to do 6 Nations, but it doesn't look like it's going to work out on my schedule because of my consulting. So maybe between my consulting, I pop over for a few weeks and catch a few URC games, link up with Hendo, maybe Fiona if she's available, the Right Reverend Rawhide, and maybe some other folks who are up in the UK who follow the program during that time. Anyway, I'll let you know, and we'll see where it goes from there. All right, so yeah, the problem is I've got to apply for that visa, which isn't a visa, but it is a visa. It's just a way to scam money out of tourists and people coming to the UK. So now you have to pay for an electronic authorization to come to the UK. Isn't that what a passport is? Anyway, so Greg is in from Poland. Val Cooper's here. Tom Smith. And then Dave, Pablo Charlie, Neville Purdon, Dylan Combrick. You know, at this stage, if my eyes, that's a couple days in a row with the poor sleep. I hope it's just a poor sleep and not enough sleep when my eyes are off. Because if this is how things look in the future, I am not going to be happy, because it means I'll actually have to start wearing glasses, which for up close, I don't really care for glasses. Wow, look at that. That fellow is pretty handsome. I had no idea I was that good looking. Thank you, Dylan. I just can't see myself clearly on the screen. How many fingers am I holding up? 23? No, it's just 4. Brian Cox is back in from Amazon Toady. Welcome back, Brian. Good to see you. Garrett Gilch from Somerset West. Holden Caulfield. Richard Kuhn. If the electric car won't go, buy a donkey. Petra Myberg is in. Hey, Petra, how you doing? Steenkamp, Mark Myberg is here. Always a pleasure to have them both on. And then we've got Lindrea Myberg. I didn't see her yet. Hendo Tony Les Farais. Welcome back. Load shedding. Yeah, well, I'm going to talk about load shedding. Why is that coming on screen, but making noise, but not coming on the screen? That is weird. Let me turn that back on. That's very odd. The alert box was turned off, but it made sound anyway. So I'm not sure what happened there. I turned it off because we were getting a lot of subscribers, which is good. And I'll talk about that in a moment too. All right, so Keith Alderson in from Coventry. Keith, there's another person for me to visit. By the way, I got to tell you, folks, Keith was the first person that I visited. It was a viewer in the UK. And what a stellar host. The guy's a rock star. We met at Awesome Castle. Took me around. We had a great time there. Then we went around. It was awesome. Really cool dude. And it was great seeing Keith there in Coventry. So anyway, Alan Kotz is here. Elizabeth Kruger. Are you related to that guy from that movie that Schwarzenegger was in? What's his name? Kruger? The one with Alyssa Milano was his daughter? All right, Nalady. Hey, Nalady. My goodness, nagged the crap out of me, so I'm here. Oh, Hendo. Well, it's about damn time there, Nalady. What have you been doing? You've been screwing off. We haven't seen you in donkey years. You know, time passes. You know, next thing you know, I might be old and hideous looking. You don't want to come when I'm ugly. You got to come when I'm devastatingly handsome. For those of you who don't get this, this is self-deprecating humor. We're being punished for SCOM's 12.7%. Yeah, that's their tariff increase, and they're still cutting power. Lynette is back. And then there's been no load shedding for 10 months, replaced by exactly load reduction. There's been load shedding all along, but they can't cover it up anymore. So now they admit that it's load shedding. What is going on here? For some reason, my chat was locked. Got it. People wishing Richard's wife speedy recovery and that she's well. That's spider bite, if I recall correctly. Wasn't that it? All right, there. I'm back to where I was in the chat. Shawnee is here. It's been a long 10 days. It has. I literally am getting no rest. There's no rest for the wicked or the dedicate, I should say. Yeah, Dylan says, I'm still too damn good looking. Mark Purchase here. Hi, I like this song. Yeah, it's a Bourgeois. It's not Giselle's song. That's sung by South Africans. But yeah. Mark Alex says, curious about where your affinity and interest in South Africa comes from. I think Mark Alex is new to the program. So I'll get to that in just a moment. So I did, but my hair looks a lot better. What did you do, Arctic? Okay. Low IQ is not here. It's no pressure. Wait, you didn't chat earlier. I greet people I see in the chat, at least as much as I can there. And Awkward Leon is here. Gus is back. I think I saw Gus there. Where'd it go? Anyway, PK. And we'll get through this in just a second there. And Light Rain is back from the West Coast of the United States. Wife in the hospital since Monday. Yeah, that spider thing. Thoughts and prayers. Ashley Engelbrecht is back. At least no load shedding. 7:30. All right. Yes, a combination mistake, kind of like Benghazi or coronavirus. No, Benghazi was not a mistake. Benghazi was foolhardy and idiotic. Flying over the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area is a necessity. 88,000 helicopter flights between 2019 and 2024. Yeah, it's necessary. It's just unfortunate mistakes that were made there. Corona was man-made, according to the CIA. Not according to me. The CIA has recently admitted that it was man-made. I didn't say that. The CIA did. So I question that. Anyway, that's just for YouTube censors. We need to let them know that I question that. All right, Lynette says, all best. Okay. Ken Ernst amazed that there have been so few errors by Trump. Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, it's because they were prepared. They were ready for this, and they are ready, and they hit the ground running. Would you want the best surgeon or the one that checks boxes? I want the best surgeon. I want the best pilot, not the one that checks boxes. Definitely watch the interview with Rob. Looking forward to it, says Chris Bodenhorst. Okay, so am I. It's going to be a short one, just 30 minutes, folks, unless it runs over a little bit. We're only scheduled for 30 minutes. Peter Joubert says, thanks for the great show. You're very welcome, Peter. Rob's a good business guy. I think it would be great to get him a show. Well, PK is on the program. We were going to do it a few years ago, but it just didn't work out, and now it looks like it's going to happen. Load shedding. That's right, Petra. Face says, I mentioned yesterday that I'm beginning to believe the Southern government sold weapons to Russians. Well, I believed it all along, Face. I believed it all along. Not that they're weapons, but probably UAV technology or capabilities, among other things. Yeah, the Lady R incident is one that the South African government can try to cover up, but it's not floating. That's a turd that won't float. It's sinking to the bottom. Yep. All right. Joe Cruz is back. Welcome to you. Angus Roy McBean. Yes, it is foul play. Load shedding. It's foul play. Anstey's in deep trouble. And Rob also said a few things about that. Ron Pose might be running scared, and that's good for us. It is very good for you. The lab in that country that made it, and the doctors had disappeared. Yeah, the doctors were all snatched up off the street when they so-called wet market was the excuse. But we're not going to get into that because that could lead to YouTube censorship, and we really don't need that when we're on a high here. Hang on. All right, so the question came up a few minutes ago, why my affinity in South Africa? Now, I apologize for those of you who are the usual suspects, along with Kaiser Sose, who show up here on the program devotedly for the past, gosh, almost 5 years. Well, next month will be 5 years. Can you believe that? 5 years since I left the military. Time flies. Anyway, so for those of you who don't know, I'm an American by birth. I'm not South African of any origin. I have no ancestry in South Africa. The closest thing I have to South African ancestry would be I have Norman ancestors and I have Dutch ancestors, but they had nothing to do with South Africa. And all of that comes long before anyone went to South Africa. So, yeah, that's the closest. I might share a few DNA strands with a few South Africans, but only just because we had similar ancestors in the 13 and 1400s. But so I have no ties to South Africa. I have no business in South Africa. I didn't fight in the liberation struggle for South Africa. I did participate in anti-apartheid protest in Amsterdam in 1985, if that counts. I really did. Still have a few pictures from that. Anyway, I came out of my lodging for the night and walked right into an anti-apartheid protest and walked along with them. Yeah, so I, in high school, lived on a small holding in rural Appalachia, which we turned into a dairy farm with Jerseys and Guernseys, but mostly Jerseys. I ran the dairy farm as a teenager, and I didn't have anything, no money, nothing to do, no car. And when I played sports, I had to walk to and from practice, which was, anywhere between 8 kilometers on a short trip when I got to ride part of the way, or as long as 22-kilometer walk home at night. And that's not a fairy tale. That's a fact. That's a fact. Anyway, fortunately, that wasn't that often. But anyway, I like to read. I was a voracious reader. I would go to the library and I look at atlases and maps and look through gazetteers and learn about places. And I stumbled into James Michener, a historical fiction writer. The reason I stumbled into James Michener is because he had done a series. He had done a book called Centennial about the westward movement of Americans and the peopling of the Plain States and the Rockies and so on by, you can call them colonists if you want, but settlers, the settlers who moved out there. And it was turned into a television series called Centennial, which miniseries were a big deal back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. June Esau Lang, Bye Bye Donkey, Kea Labo for joining us. Yeah, so I watched that series and it was fantastic as a kid. And then I came across a book of his called The Covenant. And I don't remember how I managed to get it. It was like $2.99 or $1.99 for paperback. You imagine that's how cheap books were back then, inexpensive. So I bought it. It was like 1,200 pages of thick paperback, and it's historical fiction about South Africa. And it's called The Covenant because it's tied to Geloftedag and the Day of the Vow, which, of course, was the day they made an agreement that if God delivered them, they would build a church in his honor. 16 December 1838. And so it starts long before that. All of his books start in prehistory as the earth is formed and the continents form and all this stuff. And anyway, but it deals with something called the fictional Saltwood family, an American South African family. And it's just fascinating. So I read the book. I became fascinated. I already had an interest in Southern Africa because of what was going on in Mozambique. I had read Stockwell's book about the CIA's involvement with the FNLA and Holden Roberto in Angola, and I found it unbelievably fascinating. That was a time when Soldier of Fortune magazine was very big and popular, and I used to read that in the library. And so I was just fascinated by all this stuff, military history and events unfolding in Southern Africa as I was maturing into a young adult. And so that was where my interest began. I went off to university at the age of 17 in 1982. I went to class when I felt like it and chased girls most of the time, and was a very poor student and realized I was wasting my time and other people's money since I was dirt poor and was going on assistance and grants and loans and working in the cafeteria in the evenings. So I decided that, hey, guess what? I need to buckle down. So I went in the Army, and while I was in the Army, I came across a pamphlet called the Foreign Area Officer Program while sitting in the Education Center trying to sign up for college classes in the evenings or weekends. And I looked at it, it said, well, the Army Foreign Area Officer Program, you are sent to language school where you pick up a second language, and then the Army sends you to a civilian university for a postgraduate degree in education. It costs you nothing. And then you go spend a year in an embassy or an organization abroad where you basically work as an intern and become familiar with your region. I'm like, wow, what a cool program. Now, you don't get to do it until you're a senior captain or a junior major, but hey, that sounds cool. So in 1984, at the tender age of less than 20, when I was 19, I decided that I was a private then, that I was going to finish my term in the Army, go back to university, study history, focus on Africa, and then I would come back in the Army as a second lieutenant with a commission in military intelligence. And then when the time was right, I would transition into being a foreign area officer, rise to the rank of full colonel, become a defense attaché. and serve as a defense attaché in South Africa. Those were all career goals I set in 1984. Every single one of those things came true through hard work, dedication, sometimes just good fortune, except for the defense attaché in South Africa. When I was promoted to full colonel, that position had just been handed over to the Air Force or the Navy. It's the Navy. Yeah, so I couldn't do that anymore. So there you go. So that's how I got there. And you remember the 1980s, so in 1985 timeframe, we had the famine in Ethiopia. We are the world. We are the children. Anyway, remember that? Anyway, Live Aid. So that was Queen and Freddie Mercury, one of his best performances ever when they did that in London. But that time frame was really fascinating. I read a book by a guy named Timberlake talking about Africa and the ecology and famines and minerals and such. And my interest had already been there, but it grew even deeper. So I became a rugby fan because I was introduced to it in 1982 as a freshman at university, and became a South Africa fan because I was interested there, and then a Western Province fan, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, so when I went back to university after leaving the Army in the mid-1980s, late 87, I focused my history studies on Africa in particular and Southern Africa especially, and then came back in as an intelligence officer in 1989. Spent my entire career focusing and paying attention to things going on in Africa, and then on a few tours did some Africa-related stuff, including my time in Italy, and then eventually became a foreign area officer and spent my last 20 years doing that. So there you go, a 36-year career, 20 years, a whole career just being an Africanist. I served in Tunisia, Liberia, Botswana, Malawi, Niger, Mauritania, Uganda, and Ethiopia in Africa, as well as at the U.S. Africa Command and at the Pentagon and the U.S. Army War College, all doing Africa-related things. I'm a published author in academic circles and in popular press. I've been published by the U.S. Army War College and Stellenbosch University. And I've been doing this. It was supposed to be a way to let people see what I could deliver on the table from a consulting standpoint when we got locked down. But it just sort of became I fell into a journalism role, and then I've been accredited at multiple locations on multiple continents for events in politics and economics and sports. And so there you go. That's a little bit about me. Does that help solve the question about why I have so much interest in Africa, and in South Africa in particular? I have a strong affinity for Afrikaners and Afrikaans, as well as the Tswana-speaking peoples. I lived in Botswana, and then also for the Basotho people, we're really just cousins of the Tswana. So I try to promote those three language groups and cultures. I've been to the Basotho Cultural Village in the Golden Gate Recreation Park in the Free State, and did a documentary on that. I've endlessly promoted Tswana speakers. Anyway, so that's a little bit about me. That's too much time to talk about me, so, okay. Harry says, keep it up, Chris. Love your program. So informative from Cape Town. Well, thank you, Harry. By the way, for those of you who are new to the program, just tuning in for the first time, I do meet and greets. I've done 4 trips back to South Africa. Is it 4 or 5? It's 4, I think. Since the COVID scam travel restrictions were lifted in 2022, and each one's been at least a month. Some have been a little bit longer than that. I typically, often I'm able to do it because I self-fund and I'm not wealthy, but a lot of people are generous with their resources or their homes or their maids' quarters or whatever it is. And so I've been a guest in many people's homes or their second houses and such. So I thank them for that. The strong dollar allowed me to get decent rates on rental hire cars. These trips do cost me a lot of money. In fact, the last one was very expensive. That was for the elections, and a consequence of the Department of State sitting on my passport for longer than it's supposed to be for the renewal. Cobus DeVet, thank you, Cobus. I have a friend named Gary DeVet, who's born in South Africa. He's a retired U.S. Marine, fantastic guy. Still has property in South Africa along with his family. But and there's Andrew, Eva, thank you for subscribing. Yeah, so that first trip back to South Africa in August of 2022, I did 17 meet and greets all over the country in all the provinces that I went to. I think I went to 6 provinces. I do meet and greets. I've done fewer of them in the last trip because there didn't seem as much interest, but more people are discovering the channel and finding out who I am and want to chat with me. I'm happy to do more meet and greets when I come back. That's a big part of what I do. To me, it's a way of paying it back and also answering questions. You know, I get a lot of people I interview on my program, and people, some of them are reticent. They don't want to, I don't know. I don't want to be interviewed. Why don't you want to be interviewed? I don't know if I have anything important to say. Ladies and gentlemen, a good interviewer is a good storyteller. And a good storyteller and a good interviewer can milk an interesting story out of even the most boring people. Trust me, everyone's got a story to tell. And you may not think your story is interesting, but someone that knows what they're doing can make your story interesting, because everything everyone does, there is something interesting to it. Whether tragedies befallen you or dumb luck has fallen in your lap, or you've done something that you think is not interesting. In fact, I did a interview with the head of the Macadamia Nut Association a few years ago, trying to bring positive stories about what's going on in South Africa, because the macadamia nut industry is actually a very successful part of South Africa's economy, become the world's largest exporter of macadamia nuts, beating out Australia and the U.S. So when I contacted them, they're like, why would you want to interview us? So I tried to tell them it was a good story. And then the lady who did it said, I don't think it'll be interesting. Well, I thought it was fascinating. Anyway, so there you go. Bill says, yeah, like Joe Rogan, very good interview. Yeah, people keep saying that about Joe Rogan. I think he's all right. For me, Joe Rogan is still that boring handyman from news radio. I haven't gotten over that. Sorry, that's the Joe Rogan I know. I didn't follow his career into UFC and into what he's doing now, but apparently he does a pretty good job. Not my cup of tea, though. Paperback for $1.09 was about an hour of work, which made it more expensive. Yeah, Erica came to South Africa as a refugee fleeing from the Congo. She lived in Katanga when the whole thing blew up as a small child. Do the ladies here have to play the discrimination card to get shout out, says Tracy? No, you just have to put my name up there where it's seen. Tracy. Lindrea Myberg is back. There she is. I mentioned her name earlier. Would someone please tell President Trump to sign Colonel Chris? Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to be the ambassador to South Africa. But I think it's probably going to be somebody like Joel Pollack who's connected. I'm not connected. Thank you for your service. Much appreciated. You're welcome, PK. All right. I missed Dragon's Peak. Doctors Without Borders and USAID were working closely together, but a few years ago, the corruption had crashed. Well, Doctors Without Borders and USAID, I'm not familiar with them working closely together anywhere. I've worked with Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, in many places. Also, the Mercy ships in Liberia, which are pretty amazing what they do. But there may be cases where we've given money to them, but I'm not aware of it. So I'm not an expert on that. But my experience is that we haven't worked with Doctors Without Borders. My experience with Doctors Without Borders is that they have been very standoffish. They don't want any association with the U.S. government. They don't like people to know that they do anything with the U.S. government, and that's their cup of tea. My heart verlang naar die Boland. Oh, okay. Tom loves Boland. Okay. Stellenbosch. No, Stellenbosch is a lekker place. Also a very dangerous place. Yep. Yeah, Mike's not a fan of Joe Rogan. Yeah, I think so. I'm with you. And Tony loves Joe Rogan. One doesn't like him, one loves him, just like that. Tracy's laughing. Still love you much. Well, okay, Tracy, thank you for that. How can we get connected, sir? How can we get you connected? Well, you just have to inundate and flood the White House press room. You have to inundate the president's Twitter account, stuff like that. Just be annoying. Go, hey, the guy that should be the ambassador to South Africa is this guy. I mean, I've sent my curriculum vitae in. I was also asked to send it in. I was asked to send my curriculum vitae in late December because someone recommended me to be an undersecretary or a senior official in the Department of Defense under Pete Hegseth before he got his confirmation and his nomination hearings. So I don't know if anything will come of that. I'm not going to hold my breath. But yeah, you just got to tell people. I suspect that the reason Rob Hersoff reached out to me today to do an interview is because someone mentioned me to him, or he's been watching my content and I didn't know that. But my video that I did on Trump is really getting a lot of attention. It's not the only one, but it's fantastic. South African Doctors Borders here worked with the USA. Okay. I don't know, Chris. I never worked with Doctors Without Borders in South Africa. I didn't even know they were present. Why would Doctors Without Borders be in South Africa? It's not a failed state. Or is it? Mark says, I phoned him and asked him to recognize you. Well, Mark, maybe that's where it came from. But Rob and I were in contact 3 or 4 years ago, just when he was becoming the shiny penny back on the scene in South Africa. And we were going to do something, but it just never worked out. So, all right, let me just give you an update before we get into the news. We've got some time here, folks. Let me just give you an update very quickly here about what's going on and tell you. So the video that I did with Trump not playing around, South Africa. What's the title of that thing? What I call that? Trump is not playing around. I forget what the title. Anyway, that one has 118,000 views. I'm not boasting, folks. I'm grateful. That's why I'm saying this. 118,000 views, 10,900 hours of content watched. That's incredible. That's incredible. It's still going, not as strongly as yesterday, but it's getting about about 1,800, 2,000 views per hour. So it should keep going, and maybe today it'll hit 125, 130,000. That is the best performing video I've ever had on this channel. I did have a 150,000 view video about SEAL Team 6 in Nigeria on my original channel, which is still shadow banned, unfortunately. But the two videos I did last night, so I saw the tweet from Donald Trump again about the tariffs on BRICS countries. South Africa is a BRICS country. So I felt it was an apropos time to discuss that topic and put a video out on it. And I've done that last night. I had a lot of work to do on that one to make that interesting and keep it informative, and also check a few of my facts. I mean, I pretty much knew everything I had there, but I just had to double check a few things. Like, for instance, for a long time, I've been saying that China was 85% of BRICS GDP, which it was, but that was some time ago. So it was down to 70%. So I had to get those things correct. But that one has 9,400 views and has added 42 subscribers. It's 45% higher than the average views, so thank you for that. And then the Rwanda one, I'll admit the title was a little clickbaity. I wasn't sure how to do it, but I wanted people to watch this video about the spat between Cyril Ramaphosa and Paul Kagame. Listen, Cyril Ramaphosa, gentlemen, you are not an accomplished leader. You do not know how to lead men and women. And I'm going to tell you something. Paul Kagame, I'm not a fan. I think he's an autocrat. I think he's a bit of a fascist, and I think that he should have left power 15 or 20 years ago, and he would be remembered incredibly well. But like many African leaders, he has the big man complex, and he refuses to leave office, like his neighbor, Yoweri Museveni, who were once kissing cousins, got along very well, fought together in the bush against in Uganda, and then Uganda supported his invasion of Rwanda to stop the genocide. But Kagame has been around for too long. But I will tell you this about Paul Kagame. He knows what he's doing. He's a professional. He has one of the best militaries on the continent, one that's done more to build peace in countries than the SANDF has ever accomplished in its peacekeeping adventures in Africa, or misadventures. And pissing him off is not a good idea, particularly when you have no ability to reinforce your stranded, isolated, ill-equipped, under-resourced, poorly trained troops sitting in the Congo at this moment. Rwanda is right next door. The RDF can pour across that border. No one will stop them, and they can destroy your force in place. So I would not be acting the idiot and fool that Cyril Ramaphosa is acting when it comes to this conversation. The arrogance, the asinine stupidity of Cyril Ramaphosa calling the Rwandan Defense Force a militia. Now, that wasn't a mistake. Cyril may be an idiot, but he's not stupid. Does that make sense? Yeah, he's not that stupid. Calling the RDF a militia, that was just dumb. And that was an own goal. It was stupid. And so I made that video, and I gave it a little bit of a clickbaity title, and I'm not going to apologize for it because sometimes you have to do that to get attention. But that video has gained me 100 subscribers and is now up to over 14,000 views. It's been up for about 5 hours, I think it is. Yeah, because I went to bed about 4 o'clock. Anyway, yeah, so. Chris says, I'll take the photo. Chris, I don't doubt you. I'm not questioning the veracity of what you said. I'm just saying I didn't know that they worked in South Africa. That's news to me. Okay. You never know with us. One time we're going this way, then everyone goes that way. Brendan Swart, we take a shortcut this way. I think there's yeah, exactly. Gotcha. Rama wants to lose Kagame. What's that? Who's KFM? Oh, it's just a guy this morning who was South Africa's largest views in millions from Pretoria. He says he makes between 200,000 a month. Oh yeah, no. Look, Garrett, I'm telling you guys, the ad revenue. If you have 250,000 subscribers in America, you can make a living off this. My rough estimate is that in America, if you have 250,000 viewers and you do regular, put out videos a few times a week, you're making easily $6,000 to $15,000 a month US, depending on how popular and how much viewing content goes on there and how willing you are to put commercials on there. If you have north of 250,000, so you have 500,000 views or 1 million subscribers or 1 million subscribers, you are banking money. Unbelievable. Super chats, you're not even paying attention to because they're not making that much money for you if you got that. This is one of the reasons. And now another reason, a lot of people, we haven't got to the news yet, but people are still here. A lot of people who are my dedicated, long-term, loyal viewers who've been with me for a long time will always say, yeah, Chris, don't worry about the number of viewers. It's about the quality of the programming. Well, it is. But you can have the best program in the world and have the most insightful analysis and make the best predictions that are almost always correct. But it doesn't matter if people don't find you, if you're hidden, if you're not seen. It doesn't matter. There are a lot of talented, well-informed people out there. I have a lot of colleagues who are incredibly smart about Africa, but they're not doing this. Okay, I'm embellishing. I have a couple colleagues who are really smart. I have a lot of colleagues, but a couple who are really smart who could do this sort of thing. Anyway, but the point here is that you've got to be known. And people have told me a long time, don't get wrapped around the axle about the number of subscribers. I never have been. I mean, I accepted that this channel would be a small channel of, maybe 15 to 20,000 subscribers max for a long time. And I made that realization when I had 8,000 because of the shadow banning. And that was fine with me. And I put a lot of time and effort into bringing the news and analysis to people, making some interesting videos for people who would watch. But as I said, there's a reason, two reasons why I really would like to have a large base. Number one is the bigger your subscriber base, the easier it is to get noticed, the easier it is to get interesting guests. I mean, I wouldn't be getting the guests that I'm getting now if it wasn't for some notoriety and some attention. That's the truth there. Greg just sent some zlotys to me. Wow. Thank you for the zlotys, Greg. There, thank you for your interaction with me and the audience in general. Well, that's another thing. That's something I do that not many content creators do. I do my best to do it. Sometimes you get down a rabbit hole with trolls, but we try to avoid that. I do try to interact with my audience as much as possible. That's what's so comical, like when I have a guest on. Not that it happened yesterday, I didn't see it, but when I had Neil DeBeer on yesterday, when I usually get in a conversation deep and mesh with someone like that, because we're talking topics, I don't get as much time to bring stuff in from the chat. And I get people, hey, why don't you talk to the audience? I mean, dude, I'm kind of busy, I'm interviewing somebody. Erica says, you're the best. Thank you for your commitment to us. You're very welcome, Erica. You've been a fantastic moderator and supporter of the program, even the times when your fingers slip and you give people timeouts by mistake. But yeah, anyway, so got a little bit off track there. Slap the trolls. That's my job, says Arctic. Yeah, that's why we gave you a spanner there. So another thing you may notice about me, folks, is that I'm an American, but I do use vernacular from the UK and from South Africa, among other places. We talk about robots. No such thing exists. R2-D2 is not on a street corner. That's a traffic light. But we do say robots here. And I use the British vernacular when I'm talking about going to the hospital or being in the hospital. That's what we say in America because you need an article. But the Brits say it like it's a verb. Yes, mum is in hospital. Mom is in hospital. No, I'm going in hospital. Now, but I do that as well. So, and I typically say crisps, although last night I said chips in my video intentionally because it played well into the British vernacular for you've had your chips, which is French fries. Anyway. All right. So, yeah, thanks for that. What the hell is a turnpike? Very simple. A turnpike is a road. Typically a toll road, but not exclusively. Joe says, chips is South African English. No, you got it from the Brits, my friend. You stole that. John Jarvis. Is John Jarvis here? Welcome, John. Fellow veteran. A lot of veterans in here. Leah is a veteran. Leah Minar. Garrett Gillich is a veteran. A lot of veterans in here. Charles Van Onselen. I haven't seen Charles here. Rwanda is not liked by the World Economic Forum, so they told... Yeah, they don't like them at all. They don't like them at all. And there's... Tony is a super chat. I'll get to that in a second, Tony. Thank you. Someone might be spraying false stuff, which will send libs and dems and saying Elon nominated for Nobel. What? Well, anybody can nominate. And the nomination process isn't that complicated. Trump's been nominated several times, but they just don't vote for it. There's John. Surprised to see our peacekeepers have 155 and possibly 23 millimeter guns. Really, 155 millimeter artillery, 23 millimeter anti-aircraft guns doesn't surprise me at all. They have lots of ZSU 23-4s that they confiscated or captured on the battlefield in Angola. And to my knowledge, the SANDF still uses those. South Africa, we're not going to war with Rwanda. Ramaphosa was first to draft and sign his unconditional surrender. Thank you, Neville. How's your mom? Okay. Sedgefield's back from the garden route. And what was that last chat? That was Tony. Okay. All right. Nick Muller's here. Jean-Tel van Heerden. Good evening from Witbank. Imahalangi. Well, thank you very much, Jean-Tel. Appreciate that. Boy, Afrikaners come up some interesting spellings for names. It's like Giselle, as she spelled her name. It's French and it's G-I, not J-E-Z, but it's Afrikaners. Wes says, appreciate your channel. Not much in the chat, but rarely miss an episode. All right, well, thank you, Wes. I do appreciate that. Thank you for being here. All right, Derek Stewart's back again. Freelance Kate. Turnpike is where you get charged for using a road you already paid for. Exactly. That's what the Pennsylvania Turnpike is. It's a road that you get taxed for using. And you're already paying taxes anyway on fuel taxes. We have the second highest tax added to our fuel in the state of Pennsylvania, in the country. And for a while, we were number one. Hey, look, we're number one. And then California raised our tax, and now they're higher than us. But we pay a 78 cents per gallon tax in this state. 42 goes to the federal government, and then the rest goes to the state. So we're already paying taxes to have a turnpike. The turnpike was built nearly a century ago, and it was paid for 70 years ago. It was fully paid back 70 years ago. They have been fleecing us out of money, and now they don't even employ people anymore. The toll minders aren't even there. It's all electronic. They take a picture of your license plate and send you the bill like 2 days before it's due, and then charge you a late fee if it's not paid on time. They never come at the same time. I get bills on the 5th, the 12th, the 19th, the 21st, the 31st of the month, and the answer is always, well, you should sign up for the Easy Pass. Yes, another tracking device that I put in my car so that the police can use it if they want to falsely accuse me of committing a crime and they want to set me up. Yeah, okay, does that sound paranoid? Well, it's only paranoid if they aren't coming for you. Jenkins says, I did not pay attention to the live chat during your interview with Neil. It was important to listen to the interview and not... Yeah, no, Jenkins, but a lot of people get off in the chat. And sometimes, a lot of times, my viewers ask pertinent questions, and the super chats come up, so... And a new doctor Wednesday, and she's improved dramatically. That's good to hear, Neville. I hope it's the doctor's help. And there's Leah. Right now, you seem like medication to my soul. Thank you, Leah. Fellow veterans. Good to hear that. All right, so what else we got here? All right, let's get to the news, folks. Now that I've droned on here for a little bit, we got 184 people here currently, 112 likes, and a little bit of super chat money's been coming in. So, with that, on commence. Wir sollen jetzt anfangen. Ja, schon wieder. Wir haben Loadshedding in Südafrika. Das ist ja kaum zu glauben. Schon wieder. Die Regierung von der ANC hat uns Bescheid gesagt letztes Jahr, dass es gibt überhaupt kein Loadshedding. Es existiert nicht mehr. Und, oh, sorry, I was doing the German version of the broadcast. The government in South Africa told us a year ago there is no load shedding in South Africa. And I've been calling them liars ever since. There is load shedding. It's called load reduction at the local level. It's the same damn thing. When the grid is stressed with too much demand, sucking power out of the grid beyond its capacity, it trips the entire system and everything shuts down. In order to avoid that, the power utility shuts off sectors of the grid so that the grid doesn't collapse. And there's a reason for that. Collapse is bad. Bad mojo, man. Restarting the whole grid is not easy. So, load shedding. They claim it stopped. Well, here's the dirty little secret, which I shared in that video, which is getting a lot of views that no one knows about. So I've been a huge critic of Power Africa, which is a U.S. AID program that facilitates loans and grants and coordinates and it works as an intermediary to bring people together. It doesn't build any electrical capacity. Generation capacity or delivery capacity in Africa, but it makes it happen. So it's a facilitator, which is what USAID really is now. They're a middleman. So Power Africa has been a facilitator. Well, in this context of South Africa, Power Africa in the past few years has been an incredible facilitator, ensuring that 3 gigawatts of electricity have been delivered in South Africa. That's 3 gigawatts of power that have, including residential, that have been financed that way, and also commercial, that have taken 3 gigawatts off the demand side. Meanwhile, in addition to that, so many homeowners in South Africa and small businesses have gone off the grid and put their own. That's 6 gigawatts of power. So during the day when the sun's shining, 6 gigawatts of demand is no longer drawn from the grid on average. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes lower. But that's a huge drop in what's demanded off the grid. And that's helped them reduce load shedding. Meantime, the ANC is like, oh no, our electric slide minister, you can do it. It's electric. Boogie, woogie, woogie. Koji Sensor Ramakopa at the Copacabana, the hottest spot south of Havana. I'd say north of Havana, that's the lyrics, but Cape Town is south of Havana. Anyway, so they like to say that it's all the brilliant leadership of our Minister of Electricity, and we've turned this around. Lieutenant Ngema, I'm guessing is that your initials, or are you a lieutenant? Welcome if you're a fellow soldier. And if you're not, welcome just the same. So, yeah, I don't know that they've been even remotely honest. They're claiming it's their construction efforts. No. The South African National Utility Eskom has screwed up the power grid, and that's a real mess, and they can't claim they've got out of it. The reason they got out of it is because they've gotten help from the private sector and the Americans. And do we get any credit? No. We have Cyril Ramaphosa running out going, vaccine apartheid, they're racist Americans. And we don't pass laws based on skin pigmentation, denying people access. We have preferential status for federal contracts, which I think is discriminatory, and I don't think it's legitimate. And in fact, I'm a beneficiary of it. I don't take advantage of it. But as a disabled veteran, a disabled veteran, I qualify for 2 advantages for federal contracts. But I don't bother because I think it's not fair to others. But anyway, but we don't do that. AP unknown. Is that Associated Press? We just had 2 hours of load shedding after 10 months, just after they lost their case for huge tariff increases. Why? Being used to make us concede, still pay more. Off topic, did you hear the audio from the control tower? I did. Actually, let me get to that before we get to the news, because I think that's important. I want to cover that very quickly. Give me a second to see if I can find it here, folks. Hang on a second. I'm not sure which folder I've got it in, because I've got stuff in all kinds of folders. Okay, I think it's the next folder. Gosh, I got thousands of files here. I do a lot of work here. Do I have it? I don't see it here. Huh. That's weird. Okay, well, I can't find it right now, so but yeah, I closed that document last night. I had to reboot my computer because my browser was acting all funny. It came up with this gray box at the top, like that much of the screen, and I couldn't reduce the browser or do anything. It was all tied to Firefox. I had to reboot my computer last night, and I lost. It's saved somewhere, though. But yeah, I did read the transcript that night when it came out. I did read the transcript, so yeah. There's a lot going on there. Let's get to the news, okay? Let's get to the news. Yes, Tony, I think that's what we're going to determine in the end is they were looking at the wrong plane, and that's a combination of factors. It's the environment. It's the helicopter pilot. We don't know if there are other complicating factors like using night vision goggles, which I think is foolhardy. I've lived and worked there. It's just saturated with light, so I don't know why I use night vision goggles. And then the other thing is the tower's responsible for this too, but they're trying to ignore that. Yeah. So, all right, let's get to the news. Load shedding is back in South Africa, folks, and not a surprise at all. We're past the elections, and the ANC really is incompetent. So they did all they could to keep the lights on, and now they're stopping. Stage 3 load shedding for this weekend. It could reach stage 4. And there's Chummy Brijnath. Welcome, Chummy. Sounds like an Indian South African there. The Ministry of Electricity, Kojisenso Ramakopa, has announced Stage 3 load shedding will be initiated over the weekend. According to Ramakopa, load shedding has to be initiated to protect the integrity of Eskom's power generation system. Interesting. Becky Noxmalo, the Group Executive Generation, because they broke the company into 3 elements now, said that the repairs on the units that have been gone down has started and the repairs will continue this weekend. So if you did preventative maintenance and maintain this equipment, it wouldn't break down as frequently. Just saying. As I said, stage 3, possibly stage 4, it's a perfect storm of breakdowns. Another excuse from the electricity minister and the ANC government. It's a perfect storm. It all just went wrong at the same time. Gee, I wonder why that is. Probably because you don't have excess capacity, because you've allowed the system to become dilapidated and your effort to try to extort money from the United States and Europe for your just energy transaction. Here's an idea. How about you just burn coal and produce electricity and then worry about your pollutions? Okay? That should be the way to do it. 4 police have been arrested in the release or the escape of the so-called mastermind, which I find hard to believe and plausible, of the Stilfontein debacle, the Buffelsfontein gold mine. 4 cops have been arrested. Police have confirmed that 4 police officers have been arrested by the SAP's anti-corruption unit in connection with the release from custody of alleged illegal mining kingpin James Tiger Shawale. Shawale was among those arrested during the Operation Vala Umgodi at the Stilfontein mine. However, he disappeared. Some miners accused him of being responsible for deaths, assault, and torture that took place in the mines. There he is. He got away. Hasn't been recaptured, to my knowledge. Well, the Democratic Alliance says yet another devastating blow to South Africans. The DA on the return of load shedding. Well, load shedding is devastating, but so is expropriation without compensation. That'll be a topic for discussion coming up at the bottom of the next hour with Rob Hersolf here on the program, folks. Looking forward to that. Let me just check on something very quickly here. Hang on a second. Sorry, I had to do a message here real quick to coordinate something. All right, got it taken care of now. Cool beans. I love WhatsApp. Signal I don't use so much. National Democratic Revolution, yep. So here's the question, ladies and gentlemen. What has my daughter done? What did she do that was so wrong? All she said is, we see you. Sawubona. Sawubona. I see you. Yeah, no, Duduzila Zuma is guilty, according to the charges. But we'll have to see what happens in the court of law. MK party leaders have affirmed their support for Duduzile Zuma Sambudla. Party President Jacob Zuma's daughter appeared in the Durban Magistrates Court on terrorism and incitement charges in relation to the ANC's internal insurrection in July 2021 with violence in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal provinces. The party leaders behind her. What has Jacob Zuma's daughter done? Why can't you just say Jacob Zuma's daughter, mate? Let me give the guy's whole name. This is the question former President Jacob Zuma asked MK party supporters after his daughter appeared in the court. Zuma added, if we don't protest, one day they will arrest you for doing nothing. They're going to say, enter here in jail because you said, I see you. What's wrong with the phrase? She didn't even say, I see you, black man. Ladies and gentlemen, do you see what Jacob Zuma successfully did right there? Jacob Zuma successfully treated South Africans as if they're children, incapable of cogent thought or lucid conversation. And he also racialized the whole thing. She didn't say, I see you, black men. Who gives a flying flip about black men? It had nothing to do with that. And so you see what happens? This is a conscious, racist narrative by senior black ANC and former ANC politicians across the political spectrum in South Africa. What does that have to do with it? She didn't even say, I see you, black man. That's intentional. That's meant to distract. Look over here, paying attention what's going on over there. Look over here. That's what's going on here. Do you see this? That's racist. There's no question about it. It's intentionally meant to denigrate minorities, in particular, white minorities in South Africa. Why? To what end? Because she must be guilty. Or he thinks she's guilty. Why else would he act like that? She only said, I see you, and now the child is in court. It happens to others. Why are we quiet? I want you to think about this. One day we need to go and say the government is arresting us for doing nothing. We don't want them. Doing nothing. While you were hanging out in escort, Jay-Z, the rest of us were watching the horrors unfold. That was one of my biggest broadcast errors. I covered that live for hours on end. And I, sadly, not boasting, but a statement of fact, predicted that chaos on June 29th, 2021, when the Constitutional Court said he must be remanded and surrender himself by the 4th of July, a date that's seared in my memory because that's our Independence Day. Unser Unabhängigkeitstag. Unabhängigkeitstag. There's an S in there. Yes, so I will never forget that because he was supposed to surrender by the 4th. If he hadn't been surrendered by the 4th, the police were supposed to collect him. He didn't, they didn't. Didn't turn himself in until the 8th, something like that. Late the 8th, it was actually the 9th. So I remember that, and I predicted what was going to happen. Now, I thought the chaos would be around in Kanla, and there would be violence, and there'd be looting, and theft, and there was, but it was all over KZN. It was a total disaster. And we saw how the SANDF performed there. They didn't even have rations. They deployed the army to KZN to quell violence after the violence had already been going on for 3 days. And when they got there, they had no food. They had to go to the front of the only grocery stores not burned to the ground by looters and skip the queue of all the people and cut in front of them to get food. Wow. Okay, LT says, just my initials. Well, thank you, LT. I don't recognize the surname, if it's a genuine surname or if it's, sometimes people pick these surnames, but I don't recognize the origin in Gema. So that looks like something from Central Africa or from Burundi or the Congo or something like that. So you don't have to respond to that. I'm just curious there. I find etymology of names very interesting. Neville feels sorry for Dudu, represented by Dalian Pofa. Oh, he's Dalian Pofa representing her. That's what I was hoping for. If someone told me I could save the world by stopping emissions or save my child's future by pressing a button. Yeah, well, it doesn't work that way. Local protocol for the helicopter had 200-foot ceiling again whilst under flight path. Apparently, probably also had to stay over the river. Normal height urban areas at the same. Yeah, Keith, I'm not sure that's been reported multiple different times in different fashions, what the level is for the helicopter. 200 feet sounds right. I mean, I've flown over there and it's been at that height. The talk about they weren't in the corridor is not true. It looks like there was a deviation off the south end of the island and they pulled back into the middle of the river and then diverted back. One suspects that's either their own course correction, but they were flying in an authorized path for helicopters. The question is the height. But I will tell you this. If we have a helicopter flying at 200 feet and a commercial aircraft flying at over 100 miles per hour on landing at 300 feet, that's not safe. The rotor wash could cause the plane to be off balance and ditch into the river, or the rotors could be hurt by the plane wash. So look, the AGL is the issue here. They shouldn't have been in the same path. That's an air traffic control issue. Now, whether it's the fault of the air traffic controllers or the fault of pilots is a whole other story. But the altitude may have been a reason why they collided, but it's not the proximate cause of the accident. The reason the accident occurred wasn't because of the altitude. Because if we're going to quibble about 100 or 300 feet, the plane was at 300 feet when it got hit. So the helicopter had been 300 feet. That's 100 feet difference. 100 feet is 30 meters. 30 meters is not going to be sufficient for safe passage. There were other factors involved there, but thank you for that. You're correct about that. All right. It's a Zulu surname. Proud South African here. Discovery Channel from the Trump is not playing video. I'm loving your work so far. Well, thank you, LT and Gema. It is a Zulu surname. I wouldn't have guessed that. I would have to think about that. So, all right, LT and Gema, Sawabona. It's the only Zulu word I know, my friend. A few years ago, I had trolls come on here, black supremacists. Look at him, a fake guy. Claims to be a South African. Never claimed. Not a South African. Not making that claim. Probably an American. And I wouldn't surrender my passport for anything, even when my government was run by a diaper, nappy-wearing lunatic who fell upstairs. And it was embarrassing beyond belief, but wouldn't surrender my citizenship and proud of my heritage. There's nothing to be ashamed of. My ancestors built this nation. Before they built this nation, they built England. Before they built England, they built the Netherlands. They built Sweden. Yes, my ancestors built Germany, Switzerland into huge successes. Anyway, you might find interesting, I don't know, LT and Gamma, if it interests you, but I do have videos on my channel. If you search for Blood River, Nkombe River, you'll see a few of my videos from when I was there. I've made trips out there. It's a long, dusty drive out there to the site, but you'll see some of my videos out there, and I've talked about that quite a bit. So I don't know if that interests you. Also, I have a video about Isan Lawana. There's a couple of those out there. In fact, meeting one of my viewers who is a Zulu, South African Zulu, who's a doctor. Who I haven't seen him in a long time, but we did see him there. It was pretty cool. So you can check those out. Just, look those things up on the channel. You might find it interesting just because you're Zulu. And also if you're familiar with Sile Ngubisa, he's been a guest on my program and also attended one of my meet and greets there in Amazimtoti. Blackhawks are very difficult to fly. More qualifications need to fly them. Well, yeah, Tony, they're not simple helicopters, but they're incredible helicopters. I got a lot of hours in the back of a Blackhawk. Elsa says, very proud of my ancestry. Poor suffer the most from green energy. It appears the Black Hawk was not looking for two planes. AT assume. Right, Beth. It is too hard. We don't know. We'll find out. Let's get to some of that. That's more coming up. Barbara Creasy. Now, folks, if you think what happened in Washington, D.C. is an isolated incident, it's not. Arctic, are you here? You could probably confirm here for us what I'm talking about. So this is their dirty little secret, and this has been going on for years. By the way, I'm going to fact check if we get to it in time, Donald Trump, just so you know, okay? All right, let me check. It's 7 o'clock now in South Africa, so I only have about 24 minutes. I have to zip through these stories now because we've been chatting for a while, so I have Rob Hersoff on at the bottom of the hour. And by the way, you'll be redirected to that automatically. Be a brief pause between this broadcast and the Rob Hersoff interview. It's only 30 minutes, so don't come late, and then hopefully it'll be interesting. All right, so Barbara Creasy in South Africa has mentioned a serious problem, which is a problem in many countries. But South Africa is a self-inflicted wound. They had the people. They didn't train additional ones, and they played race games and chased qualified people out. He said there's a shortage of critical staff, including flight procedure designers, surveyors, technical staff, engineers, instructors, and in air traffic control. And that ought to scare the bejesus out of you. That South Africa has insufficient air traffic controllers. Wow. Wow. A committee established by Transport Minister Barbara Creasy, communist, to investigate problems at the air traffic and navigation services found that there were critical staffage shortages, particularly in the air traffic service, and that critical communications, navigation, and surveillance systems were not as reliable as they should be. You should never put people in positions based on their genitalia, their sexual orientation, their ethnic origin, their skin pigmentation, or their religious affiliation. You should put people in positions of public safety as law enforcement officials, as prosecutors, as prison wardens, as military personnel, air traffic control, doctors, engineers who are qualified because they have done what is needed to be qualified and have the experience. That's what needs to happen. Yeah, you think we're having air mishaps here. Wait for it coming, South Africa. Excuse me. Woo! Boy, that was painful. All right. Well, this is a scary one because I go to the Cape Town International Airport frequently. Good news for me is I don't use Europcar because they're outrageously expensive and they're owned by a company that I don't care for. Europcar has had an employee who's been stealing people's money. Wow. 34-year-old woman who was arrested last week while disembarking from a flight at OR Tambo in Kempton Park was transferred to Cape Town where she pled guilty to charges of contravening the Cybercrimes Act. Yolanda Nkwakuva said she landed in a flight from Qatar. The accused entered into a Section 105A plea agreement and sentence. She was convicted and sentenced as follows. For contravention of the Cybercrimes Act of 2020, a fine of 40,000 rands or 12 months imprisonment. I think it should be both. She was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, upon which was wholly suspended for a period of 5 years. Wow. She was arrested by SAP's border police at OR Tambo after a flight from Qatar. Allegedly involved in compromising clients' card information while she was employed at Europcar in Cape Town International Airport from 2017 until 2018 while clients entered their rental agreements. The Hawk said she would supply the card information to a syndicate that manufactured clone cards, ripping off the customers. And this is one reason why when I go to Avis and they ask me for my credit card, I'm like, why? Why do you need my credit card? My credit card is on file. There's no need for me to hand me my credit card for you to swipe it. None whatsoever. None whatsoever. So 40,000 rand, a fine, that's a joke. That's an absolute joke. The woman should go to jail. Should go to jail. The diplomatic strain between Rwanda and South Africa, relations are on the ice after Cyril Ramaphosa committed an own goal by calling the Rwandan Defense Forces a militia. What a brilliant fool. Kagame versus Ramaphosa. Your president put out lies that our president had to correct. That's what their spokesperson told Radio 702 in South Africa. It's correct. We are earning peanuts. SANDF troops in the DRC say they're demoralized by low danger pay. Apparently, according to soldiers, they're taxed on their income while deployed in combat. What kind of moron charges taxes to soldiers deployed overseas deployments? That's insane. Plus, the government's taking a big cut of the money that's the stipends being paid to them, according to soldiers. I can't verify this independently. I haven't talked to any soldiers. But, sorry to see you go, Leah. Thanks for being here. Democratic Republic of Congo setbacks show that South Africa's foreign policy is a bit overambitious. More than 50,000 people without passports intercepted and banned from entering South Africa. It's not just America that has a criminal alien invader problem. South Africa, of course, we know this, has millions of illegal aliens in the country. Well, the George building collapse, remember that? And the rescue operation that took place. One of our viewers is a firefighter and works with emergency services and was involved in that. And we talked about it. The report is finally coming out. Western Cape Premier hands the findings over to police. Police are reviewing the report alongside other evidence to determine whether criminal charges should be laid in this case. In the substandard construction site that took place in George that collapsed. SADC leaders gather in Harare to discuss the DRC, and I predict nothing substantive will come of it. Dean Hodgkiss, thank you for your subscription. Yeah, I predict nothing substantive will come of it. Rwanda is insisting they're open to talks if only Cyril Ramaphosa will put a sock in his mouth. Kagame looks pretty angry there. The government of Rwanda insists there is no warning given during the two telephonic conversations between Ramaphosa and Paul Kagame. Yep. A Uruguayan soldier who was part of the UN mission, MONUSCO, also died in the battle with the M23 rebels. South Africa lost 13 soldiers to M23 rebels in battles this month, over the past week. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we heard famously that the economic freedom fighters promised to build a school many, many years ago, and they never did. But here's some bright news. We get some bright news here. The economic freedom fighters, under ever slimming and slimmer and slimmer and slimmer, Slim Fast, Juju Malema, has donated 100,000 rand. Wow. Wow. Look at that. The EFF has donated 100,000 rand to Gauteng's top-performing public school. the Luftherring Secondary School in Soweto as part of the party's campaign aimed at supporting schools in need. Wow, if only they build the school they promised to build. Benjamin Labuskakny offers me advice, which I will say is completely opposite of my experience. Benjamin Labuskakny said, next time try first car rental. I've recently had a very good experience with him after my vehicle was in for rear bumper bashing. Well, I use first car rental, which has the little pink emblems, at the King Shaka International Airport in Durban when I booked a flight through Fly Saf Air because they have an affiliation. I was charged for the car. Then when I arrived, I was charged again and double the rate that I was charged at. And then after I left, I was charged 3 times the rate. So I paid for the car 3 times. It took several months, but eventually my money was refunded. Not a good experience. Not a good experience. They treated the reservation as if all it did was reserve the car and not take money from my bank card. But it did. The moment that I made a reservation through Fly Saf Air, my credit card was charged for that car. And then I was charged again at the airport. They told me it was just to cover incidentals. It wasn't. When I got back, they charged me double. And then when I inquired about it, they charged me a 3rd time. Yeah, so look, it's all hit and miss. I stick with Avis. I've been with Avis for 40 years, and they're great. I use other car rental companies when Avis is too expensive. But I'll tell you what, when I went to the Rugby World Cup in England in 2015, they hooked me up, man. I had an awesome Mercedes, which was awesome. Had a great time. Big sedan, traveling all over the country in style. I booked it a year and a half in advance, and that's how I wound up getting a really good car. Didn't the SANF troops murder their own commander for trying to apply? I'm not sure which deployment was that. The stream just cut. What? Stream is live. Stream is live. Stream is live. Some people have left, but the stream is live. And there's Eminem just subscribed. Eminem. My palms are sweaty, weak and steady. All right. State of the Nation says pace. What's this? You can't go wrong with Avis. All right. Malema thinks Lumumba, 1960. You think he's Patrice Lumumba? I don't think so. Yeah, Chuji was just collecting bricks. Yeah, he sure is. All right, so let me get through some more of this news very quickly here. A Gauteng teacher reports that she has 53 first-grade learners. She says some of her colleagues have 70 students in their class. She has to borrow chairs for these kids to sit in. This is insane. Jacaranda FM reports off of some social media post. Teacher Landi explained how she had to borrow furniture from grade R classes and expressed her sadness with colleagues who were managing 70-plus learners. Wow. She questioned the government's priorities regarding the education system. She's right. She's right to question it. Education is collapsing in South Africa and it's a disaster. Mozambique is launching a military operation against a new jihadist attack in Cabo Delgado province. Good luck with that. And meanwhile, Total Energies is stalling its project until peace returns, the natural gas product. Ebola outbreak hits Uganda's capital of of Kampala. Uganda reported an outbreak of Ebola in Kampala yesterday, raising concerns of deadly virus might spread through congested East African city. A 32-year-old male nurse died in Kampala, and the post-mortem samples confirmed that he'd been infected with the Sudan strain of Ebola. Ladies and gentlemen, I lived in Kampala, and we did Ebola research there because it's endemic in the southwestern part of the country. Pretty scary stuff. Pretty scary stuff. All right. Nigeria, the union, rejects the telecoms tariff increase. They are not happy with the increase in the price of mobile telecommunications. Nigeria's main labor union has rejected the government's approved 50% hike for telecommunications tariffs and announced plans for a nationwide protest on February 4th. I'll try to see if we can get some coverage of that. That should be fascinating. They're not alone. Also, MTN, the largest carrier in South African-based carrier, the largest one in Nigeria, is angry about the 50% tariff increase. Hundreds of Egyptians protested the Gaza border against Donald Trump's idea that send the Palestinians to Egypt. The Egyptians don't want the Palestinians. Can it be any clearer? Hundreds of people attended a protest near Egypt's border with Gaza against a plan floated by President Trump to move Palestinians from the territory to Egypt and Jordan. So, what? Aren't they your brothers? Aren't they your brothers? I mean, we have solidarity from people who live thousands of miles away in Cape Town, gift of the givers, Dr. Suleiman, with the Palestinians. Everyone loves the Palestinians there because you're not taking them on as your neighbors. But people that have to live with the Palestinians don't want them. Hamas says that it will release its first American hostage. Militant group released the names of the next 3 hostages to be freed, including 65-year-old Israeli-American Keith Siegel. Thank you, Johan Nell, for subscribing. Militant group said it would free 65-year-old Israeli-American Keith Siegel, who was kidnapped from his home on October 7th. Here are the 3 people to be released. Meanwhile, Hamas is playing games with this, turning the hostage release into a spectacle and endangering the lives of hostages as they release them. Crowds smothering the hostages in an effort to show that Hamas is in control. Hamas wants to send the world a message it's still in charge in the Gaza Strip, turning the release of hostages into a spectacle that Israel is powerless to stop. The pattern began 2 weeks ago when the Israeli first hostages were released. Crowds of jeering men crowded around the Hamas trucks carrying Israeli hostages. When the women got out, they ran to Red Cross officials waiting in nearby vehicles to take them home. But on Thursday, militants upped the ante. They released 2 civilians, a 29-year-old woman and an 80-year-old man, in front of the rubble of a house of Yahya Sinwar, the now dead mastermind of the terrorist attack of October 7th, 2023. This time, the hostages struggled to get through the crowd as they were surrounded by these evil people. Yeah, unbelievable, folks. I think the Israelis need to suspend the ceasefire and go after them again. China's property sector is in retreat. I've told you China's in a lot of economic trouble, but people keep pimping how great and wonderful China is. Housing crisis claims more private developers, state-owned ones, now dominate the sector. So state-owned enterprises in a communist country, imagine that. Yes, private and locally owned developers are faltering. The sector is becoming more dominated by state-owned companies, which outcompete them because they have unfair advantages. A massive sinkhole has expanded in Japan, and a man has been trapped there for 3 days in a truck. Sinkhole swallowed a truck. It's expanding, and residents are very concerned. Japanese authorities have asked hundreds of residents near Tokyo to evacuate as a sinkhole at an intersection grew to more than 40 meters, hampering rescuers racing to reach an elderly truck driver whose vehicle was swallowed by the hole. I don't understand why he can't get out. Is he injured or pinned in? That's one thing I haven't figured out. Gold is at an all-time record of $2,800 an ounce. That is the highest ever, as U.S. fourth quarter GDP under Joe Biden came in lower than expected. Our economy is collapsing. Thank you, Joe Biden. Early morning trade today, spot prices reached $2,800 an ounce, hitting an all-time high of $2,807 before coming back down at 8:10 this morning. Wow. That's a high price for gold, folks. It's a shame South Africa isn't the world's largest gold producer anymore. You could use that money. Well, the Kremlin is choking off YouTube. Sounds like YouTube does to my channel. The Kremlin is trying to cripple YouTube in Russia. Internet experts say people are finding workarounds, including VPNs, to get around it. Vladimir Putin, the fascist in chief, doing that. The man who burned Korans in Sweden was shot dead during a live TikTok live stream. Iraqi atheist Salwan Momika's provocations sparked violent protests and prompted Turkey to suspend NATO negotiations with Sweden some time back. The 38-year-old refugee and anti-Islam activist was attacked in his apartment late on Wednesday. The killers appear to have shot him when he was live streaming. I think he was shot anyway. They killed him anyway. His death was not sure it was captured on camera. Swedish police arrested 5 suspects hours after the killing. The suspects were aged 20 to 60, and several of them lived in the neighborhood, according to Swedish media. He was due to appear in court Thursday to hear the verdict in a trial where he stood accused of inciting ethnic hatred through his Quran burnings after the killing. The other defendant in the case posted, "I'm next." Yep. Comes amid a surge of Islamist attacks in Sweden. Norway has seized a Russian ship accused of cutting an undersea cable. Authorities said they believe the vessel may have been involved in damaging the cable, the latest act of sabotage in the Baltic. Authorities in Norway have seized a Russian crewed ship that is suspected damaged undersea cable in act of sabotage. They were acting on a request from the Latvian authorities and on an order issued in Norwegian courts that the undersea cable between Sweden and Latvia was damaged this week, a story I reported on earlier this week. NATO is feckless. Why aren't they patrolling 24 hours a day and following these ships to make sure they're not dragging anchors? It's not a helicopter collided in midair. Wow. 88,000 helicopter flights in the past 5 years in the D.C. air traffic control zone. More than 40 bodies now have been recovered from this, and the black boxes have been found. More than 40 bodies recovered from the wreckage of the Army Black Hawk helicopter and American Airlines plane that collided midair near Reagan National Airport into the Potomac on Wednesday. There are now 40 bodies. The black boxes have been recovered. Investigators confirm they've recovered a cockpit voice recorder and a flight data recorder, devices referred to as the black boxes, from American Eagle Flight 5342. Officials say it's too early to draw conclusions. Trump has blamed the diversity program. Yeah, and that's probably not a wise thing, which I said. And here's the Washington Post, because that became the story. Trump launched air controller diversity program himself that he now derides. And this is unfortunate because Donald Trump complained about it, but apparently this program was started by Obama, not ceased by Trump. when he took over. It started in 2013. And these are the things that they hired people are disabled for: hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, psychiatric disability. That's crazy. That's crazy. It's the Aviation Development Program in 2019. Now, that they give him 4 Pinocchios for this, saying that Trump lied about this. But with the Federal Aviation Administration probably put in place a program that Trump was unaware of, but it did occur on his watch, so he should have been better informed. Yeah. All right. Confirmation hearings continue in D.C. The crash has renewed concerns about air safety lapses. Clues emerging from the moments before the Army helicopter collided are now coming out, and there's part of the fuselage there. Horrific situation. Clues emerging from the moments before the deadly collision Wednesday night between an Army helicopter and American Airlines passenger jet suggest that multiple layers of the country's aviation safety apparatus failed. According to flight recordings, a preliminary internal report from the Federal Aviation Administration, interviews with current and former air traffic controllers, and others briefed on the matter. The FAA spokesman said the agency could not comment on the ongoing investigation, but it looks like a cascading sequence of errors, human errors, caused this. A federal ban on handgun sales to adults under the age of 21 is in violation of the Constitution, according to an appeals court. A big victory for the Second Amendment. Federal appeals court ruled January 30th that a decades-old government prohibition on handgun sales to adults under 21 is unconstitutional. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the law barring federally licensed firearms dealers from selling handguns to those adults violates the Second Amendment. Yep, and that's good news. Well, Maryland governor has imposed taxes on the wealthy, and the poll finds that people support it. Yeah. Maryland poll, Governor Moore's taxes on the wealthy and cannabis are popular. Residents support Governor Wes Moore's budget-balancing tax increases with high-income earners, sports betting, and cannabis sales. But a proposed 75-cent fee for retail delivery meets widespread opposition. So what this tells you is that Maryland residents are fine taxing as long as the tax doesn't apply to them. The vast majority of people aren't wealthy, so they don't mind taxing the rich unfairly to pay for benefits that they get, as long as they don't pay 75 cents for Grubhub to deliver food. Seriously. So here's the problem. Maryland had a balanced budget under Bob Ehrlich 20 years ago. And within 3 months of becoming the governor of Maryland, his successor, Martin O'Malley, squandered a $2 billion surplus. And Maryland has been in the crap ever since, handing out money left and right that shouldn't be spent. And now they want to take more money out of people's pockets. I know. I'm from Maryland originally, and I lived there when this all happened. Ladies and gentlemen, sad news when it comes to the ice skating community. And again, we all have mortality, unfortunately. Two-time Olympic champion and Titanic figure skater Dick Button has died at the age of 95. Two-time Olympic champion pushed his sport to new physical heights, went on to become television's most recognized voice for generations of viewers for the Olympics. Dick Button, who brought figure skating to American audiences as the first U.S. skater to win an Olympic gold medal and a longtime commentator, died Thursday at his home in North Salem, New York. He was 95 years of age. A Titanic figure in the sport, Button bridged eras. Born in 1929, he was old enough to have met one of the founding fathers of modern skating, Ulrich Salchow. Oh, that's where they get the name Salchow, the skating move, and received a personal trophy from him. But he was also young enough to pioneer a new wave of explosive athleticism in the sport, pushing it past 1 or 2 revolution jumps by unleashing the first 2.5 revolution double axel and then the first triple jumps that became a hallmark of the modern sport, as well as the flying camel spin. Yeah, 1948 Olympics. My goodness. He won back-to-back Olympic men's titles in 48 and 52, as well as 5 consecutive world championships and 7 U.S. titles. He also won the European Figure Skating Championship, prompting the competition to restrict it to actual Europeans. He won his first medal in St. Moritz in Switzerland in 1948 in the first post-war Olympics. Because he was so successful, he won a medal in European Championships. They said only Europeans can compete. We let everybody compete in the Boston Marathon. Why can't you let him compete there? Keith just described. Thank you for that. Odd that the only undersea cables being broken are in the Baltic. Exactly, Holden Caulfield. Well, you could say it's the shallow waters, the brackish nature, all kinds of reasons, but they're all being sabotaged. They're making the Scandinavian and Baltic states pay for Russia's war because they've sided with the Europeans against Russia. So that's what's going on. The Chinese and Russians are destroying these cables intentionally. Same with the Nord Stream pipeline, but that wasn't done by the Russians. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up here. Be sure to hit the like button. And if you want, hang around. You'll be taking over. Rob Herself will be my guest in about 5 minutes right here on the program. All right, guys, thanks for being here. Be sure to hit the like button and watch my content. Thank you so much. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for the new members, the new subscribers. Really do appreciate it. Nancy Kerrigan interviewed this morning. Yeah, I didn't see that. All right, so Rob Herself coming up in 5 minutes. Cheers, everybody.